Hello and welcome to the Career Jitsu podcast. My heart is filled today because I am so excited to have the opportunity to interview on the Career Jitsu podcast my daughter, Naya Patterson. She is amazing. She is a surf instructor. She became a certified surfing instructor under the International Surf Association. And she also has trained jujitsu. She has jujitsu in her blood because she's my daughter. But she did actually train jujitsu as a kid. And she also kind of dabbled back and forth with jujitsu on and off over many years. So she understands jujitsu and she certainly understands surfing. So we are going to connect surfing to jujitsu. Right, Frank?
Absolutely. I'm so excited for this interview because I've known Naya since she was very little. I've seen her grow up into an amazing young woman. And if I had to describe her in one word, it would be adventurous. She's just a worldly young woman who takes chances, goes out there and drinks up life. So even though she's young, she has a, a treasure trove of wisdom to share with us today. So
Absolutely.
I'm gonna kick it off, Naya. First of all, thank you so much for meeting with us. We know you're very, very busy and you're carving out some time for us. So we appreciate it. Our listeners appreciate it. And I guess if you could just start out, Jason and I just had an interview about the father-daughter relationship where both do the beautiful art of jujitsu. So tell us a little bit about how your dad got you into jujitsu, a little bit about that journey, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions about your surfing.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here. And I know my dad is like tearing up in the background because he's so excited too. Yeah, so like my dad said, like I have jujitsu in my blood because I grew up with my dad. It was just me and him most of my life growing up. And I was always in his school. Like he would take me to work and I would be on the mats, like even going into class, climbing on the adult students sometimes, and definitely taking class with the kids. And I was always in the dojo, like every time that he was working, which was almost every day. And so I definitely have it in my blood. And I think that's and then I went on my own way to, like you said, I'm pretty adventurous. I like to try different things. And then I fell in love with just nature and moving in nature. And then that's kind of what led me to surfing. But I think surfing, I'm able to get into surfing in a way that has sort of a jujitsu background.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for our listeners who don't know, Maya is extremely athletic, flexible, and coordinated. I used to always, when she'd be rolling out the mats and doing things, I would always ask her, "Well, do a back handspring, do your cartwheels." And she was just extremely, I don't know if this is even a word, gymnastical, but she had all of those abilities like a flyer. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit then about how you got into the surfing. And because you're so athletic, coordinated, and you had all that BJJ in back of you, did you find? So I want to hear a little bit how you got interested in it, what it was like when you started, and did you find that your coordination and, in jiu-jitsu you use all of your muscles, did that help you learn a little bit faster than the average person learning to surf?
I think it might have. I think I had a little bit of leverage starting out because of that. And it probably has a little bit to do with biology too, because like my dad is also that way. Since he was a kid, he's very springy and he looks so young and he's getting up. And I think I also have that in my blood a little bit. And so, yeah, I think like as I, started surfing, it was in 2019 or 2020 is when I really started. I just I went to a place called Tofino in Canada. I was going to college there, and I took an internship on the coast where there's surfing, and I was living right on the beach where the surf is. And that's where all of my inspiration started coming from because I wanted to go to this place. I heard about it and I was like, oh, there's surfing there. And that was just the seed that planted. And then I ended up just buying my own little foam board and going out there and learning on my own. And I definitely self-taught myself for the first year. And yeah, I just fell in love with the sport. And like, I remember being out in the waves with like really good surfers that I was working with. And once in a while, they would say some things to me that kind of like lifted my confidence a little bit. But I was such a beginner and I still didn't know anything. But they would be like, yeah, she was just riding bombs out there. And like, they were like hyping me up about it. And at that time, like, I definitely didn't know what I was doing. But I think maybe in hindsight, like seeing other surfers that were beginners, maybe because of which I'm going to talk about, because of these similarities in jiu-jitsu, I was able to learn a little bit easier than like another.
Starting from scratch, not having that
Yeah.
background.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So our listeners, okay, you go ahead, Jason. You can ask
Oh
your
no,
question.
but that's fine. So Naya, so you found that you really loved surfing. You developed a passion for it, right? And then, can you tell our listeners a little bit about how you kind of made it into a little bit of a career for yourself? Yeah, can you start with that?
Yeah. So then after I went to Canada and learned how to surf there, I really fell in love with it. And then I was wanting to become a surf instructor because I wanted to do it as my job. I wanted my office to be the ocean.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So I looked up online how to become a surf instructor, and I found this YouTube video that told me like exactly how to do it and told me about the world known, the world recognized certifications to be a surf instructor so I could do it anywhere in the world. And that brought me to a surf camp that is led by ex-World Tour surf competitors. They're pro surfers and they are located in Sri Lanka. And it was 10-week course and it was called a Zero to Hero course. So you could basically have never surfed in your life and they would train you all the way up to becoming a surf instructor to teach beginners to intermediates or however much you were able to learn. Yeah, I like all pretty much overnight, I decided I was going to do that course after graduating college. And I flew to Sri Lanka and I stayed there even longer than those 10 weeks. I stayed for the whole season because I just fell in love even more with surfing and I wanted to practice my skills that I learned from the coaching. And yeah, that was the catalyst for the rest of my life, really. I started teaching in North Carolina after that to teenagers. And then I also taught a lot in Sri Lanka, taught a lot of surfing in Sri Lanka. And now I'm in Florida.
And you're teaching in Florida, correct?
Not yet. I'm gonna try to get there eventually. I'm just getting my foundation here, my foot in the ground, and right now it's like the slow season. So
Okay.
there's not a lot of schools like that are open and running right now, but in the summertime, I hope so. That's what
I'm sure that you'll find success in that. So, um, there's a lot of parallels between surfing and jujitsu. I mean, this is such an easy fit together. Some of the things you had mentioned before were like fluid body movement, the ability to adapt. One of the things you said earlier was like you need to adapt to the size of the wave, the shape of the wave, the force of the wave, the intensity of the wave, the
yeah.
power of the wave, the direction. That is all very similar, is it not, to
Yes,
jujitsu? And instead of a wave, it's your opponent, kind of. So,
definitely.
can you expound a little bit on that?
Yeah, so with surfing and like jujitsu, how I grew up learning it, you have to you have like these primal movements. Like you're very in tune with how the human body is moving, like rotating your body, keeping your core engaged, your center of gravity, and yeah, really just flowing with the conditions. So like with jujitsu, it would be more like being able to adapt to the resistance of the other opponent versus surfing. It's very similar because you also have to constantly adapt to the ocean and really flow with the conditions, whether it's the wave like crashing over you or you riding onto the wave. It's constantly adapting and constantly being fluid and using your primal human body movement.
The mechanics, the body mechanics.
Yeah.
Very, Jason, isn't it?
Yeah,
Such
it
a
is. And the fluidity, fluidity is something that a lot of people lack when they first start learning jujitsu, is being able to understand that you can't fight force with force. So I think a great connection with jujitsu and surfing there is, like Naya was saying, you have to flow with the resistance. That ocean is powerful. So you can't
You're
necessarily
not going to
fight
beat
that.
it. You're not going to come
Yeah,
over the
yeah.
ocean, as Andrew would say, right?
Right, and exactly, and the same thing with jujitsu, right? You have a big, strong, skilled opponent, or even self-defense wise, you have a bigger, stronger person on top of you. You have to find a way. You have to feel, and you can't fight that resistance. You got to feel where that least resistance is and be able to move to the path of least resistance. And so I think that's a really awesome connection, Naya. So can we talk a little bit about positioning? Because you did also talk a little bit about how important it is for you to get the right position when you're ready to hit that wave. You have to be in the right position, because I know, and Frank knows, and you know too, Naya, that in jiu-jitsu, you have to be in the right position to be able to do certain techniques, or to be able to get control over an opponent, or to be able to finish with a submission. If you don't have the right position, nothing else is going to go right. So can you talk a little bit about, in surfing, how having the right position for you is really important?
Yes. So in surfing, positioning is super critical for energy conservation. While there's something called the impact zone in surfing, and that's where the waves are constantly crashing. You'll see like a white foam of like just a big area of white foam. That's called the impact zone. And that's where it's the most intense. If you're trying to paddle past that part, you want to try to position yourself actually in area where you can get out to the ocean a lot quicker and conserve your energy. Actually, rip currents, where they say are pretty dangerous for swimmers, that's actually a really beneficial area to get out to the back without getting all of these waves crashing on you, as well as timing too. I know timing is also important. Yeah, just being in a position where in the ocean and on the beach where you're actually like conserving a lot of energy. And that also is where it relates to when you're trying to catch the wave. There's a peak of the wave, so that's like the highest point where the wave is coming up and it's going to break. Right there, if you want to try to position yourself as close to the peak as you can, because that's where it has the most power, and that will give you the best and the longest ride of your wave. So yeah, it's critical. And because the environment is always changing, you always have to be aware of where the good positioning is, basically.
Wow, that was so eloquently stated, Naya. That was almost poetic. And we've had a lot of guests talk about positioning, but nobody ever put the positioning together with the energy management. I really like that
Mm.
you put those two things together. And it's like Jason always says, when you're tired and you're underneath somebody, get your frames and breathe in that positioning. Without that positioning of those frames, you're going to gas out.
Yeah, and knowing, sorry, Frank, being in that right positioning, whether you're safe or you're not. In jujitsu, like, you can stay in a position and know that you're safe in that position, or sometimes when you're in that position, you're not safe. And that's the same thing on the ocean too, right, Naya? I mean, you get into a certain position, okay, I'm safe right here. I can be patient right here. Or sometimes you're in a position, you're like, oh, I got to get out of this position,
Yeah.
right?
I like the way you named it, the impact zone. I think in our school, the impact zone is when Juan is on top of you. That's the impact zone. So that's a great word. We're going to just adapt to BJJ. Right? So Naya, you talked a lot about the physical, but there's also a lot between surfing and jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of parallels with the mental piece. One of the things you had mentioned is that it's very humbling. A lot of humble pie in jiu-jitsu and a lot of humble pie in surfing. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So that is definitely from the get-go, like the thing that I have most. That is just like if you can be confident, and that's totally okay to be confident in something in yourself. But when confidence becomes inflated, you have like this inability to assess reality of like yourself and the situation. So if you are up against a situation in surfing where you're not ready to handle, because there's only a limited amount of muscle memory that you have and background knowledge that you have that you can go into it. But if because it's always changing and you never really know truly what to expect at every given moment, you have to, instead of going into this, it could be a whole session. It's not just one moment. It could be an entire session for hours. You have to go in mentally being ready to be patient and humble and work with it instead of thinking that you can just dominate everything. Because if you just think you can dominate everything, it's not going to work. You're going to get humbled very quick
Yeah.
if it's
In
not.
both sports, big egos get crushed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Period. And
but
most of the
Frank,
time in that impact zone, right?
yeah, yeah. To our listeners, Naya took me because I was like, after she got certified as an instructor, she was like, Dad, I have to take you to teach you surfing. So she brought me to this ocean. I think it was like, where was it? Maine or New
Yeah.
Hampshire?
New Hampshire is Genesee Beach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Small.
So she took me there and it was extremely humbling because I consider myself a pretty coordinated person, having done jujitsu so long and have pretty decent core strength and balance and flexibility. But Frank, I am telling you, I struggled. I struggled just getting on the board. I didn't even get into the water on the waves. I actually struggled just with the transition of getting onto the board on the sand, getting onto the board, never mind on a wave. So
Wow.
so yeah, it takes a lot of patience. So Naya, when you teach surfing, so you taught me, but you've taught many people how to surf. So is that a really big thing that you try to give to the people that you're teaching surf to? That gift of understanding, humility, and patience, because you have to be patient to learn surfing because it takes a lot to learn how to surf. So is patience something that you really instill to get that right mindset for people that you're teaching to surf?
Yeah, so I try not to overwhelm people because like when people are just learning how to surf, everyone is different, but I've found most of the time that people just are unsure what it's going to be like yet if they're absolute beginners. So they might actually have a little bit of fear and a little bit of like I don't know, like being apprehensive about like what's going to happen. Actually try to instill as much basic understanding of like what they're about to get into as they can. And if it's someone who's just super excited, like I worked with a lot of teenagers in North Carolina, and they were some of the boys and girls were like, let's just go out there, let's just surf. And in that way, sometimes like instead of like it's kind of hard to just like teach someone how to be patient. Like that's kind of a virtue
Mm, mm.
just
Mm,
have or that
yeah.
you gain experience. But the only way that I would like try to instill patience in someone or humility is kind of throwing at them a little bit of things that maybe they wouldn't have thought of before they get out there. So I would start talking about like all of the different types of currents and like safety things that would make them be like, oh, okay, I didn't even think about that. And then kind of like that would force them to like take a step back and assess themselves and the situation a little bit better and then, go from there. So I
Yeah,
would
that
just give like nuggets of information in order for them to, develop some type of mentality to get into it.
So once they realize, wow, there's a lot that I didn't even think of or didn't even know, that's kind of a way to open a door to being a little bit more like, okay, I'm a
Yeah.
student here. I'm not just
Yeah.
going to
yeah.
get on this board and hang 10. Do they still say hang 10? Do they still do
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. I'm not too old. I
Yeah.
still fit in.
Yeah, you
Um,
can't just jump on the mat and say Your first day of training jujitsu, you can't just jump on the mat and be like, let's start sparring because it's not going to end well, right? So you get same thing with surfing. You've got to learn the basics and teach them the understanding of the art of surfing so that they can know that there's possibly gonna be some failures coming up, right, Frank?
Absolutely. And the thing, really, Jason, you kind of did that at our school because we never used to have fundamentals. When I started, you just rolled. You remember that, the old days? Now
Yeah.
you've got the fundamentals class so that they can kind of ease into it and understand and learn the fundamentals before they are actually hitting the bigger waves. My first role was Andrew, my first day, but he was totally cool. It wasn't like, but I do like that philosophy of let's just show you you're coming in here. There's a lot that you don't know. Come in here with the mind of a student, not the mind of an ace, right? That's an important thing with any discipline. You actually shared some nice quotes, Naya, from I think Eli Olson, that the best surfers in the world will say that they are still students. I love that quote. That's just, and it's the same with Jason. You always say, because we all look at Jason like we want to see him struggle, but he never really struggles. But he says,
I
no,
do.
no, no. I'm a student. I go places. I'm a student. I struggle too, and we're all in the same boat. I think that's another piece of what you learn when you teach, and another example of being humble, even when you are great at it. Right?
Yes, definitely. And I also just wanted to add to like with teaching surfing, like I also feel like I learn so much with teaching surfing because if I see a student like doing something that I can't quite understand why he or she is not able to get it to do it properly, that indicates to me that there's a block in my understanding and it forces me to think outside of my own understanding of the sport. And yeah, it keeps me accountable to continuously learn and open my mind more and more to helping others and also improving on myself.
I like that term, keeps me accountable. That's a smart way to look at teaching. It does keep you accountable to the fundamentals. And do you really understand them? Right. And when you teach them, you realize maybe you could do it, but you didn't really fully understand it. Right.
Mm.
So that's a beautiful thing about being a teacher and a student. That's what we all are, right? Teachers and students. Can you just talk a little bit about, you mentioned something about in surfing, you are forced to be present in the
Mm.
moment. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it kind of ties everything together really because um like that's life too. I feel like, and with jujitsu and with surfing, it becomes more than just a sport or a hobby. It really does become a lifestyle. And in surfing, um, it translates really into every part of my life. I feel like surfing helps me live in the moment because, again, like the conditions are always changing and I'm always changing. And so the best thing that I can do for myself to surf and to live is to stay present and yeah, presence.
Be present. And doesn't
Yeah.
every great philosopher that you've ever read say the same thing?
Yeah.
The secret to life is to stay present.
Yeah.
So you can get that through surfing. You can get that through jujitsu and obviously other things too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'd imagine like you have to be present when you're on the ocean because if you're not, if you're thinking about other things, you're gonna miss what you need to see to be able to hit that correct wave or be in the right position like you've talked about. Having that patience to be able to know, when and how, is really important. So I think that's awesome. Frank, there's so many parallels between surfing and jujitsu. And I think it's really great how not just is Naya passionate about surfing herself, but she's also passionate about sharing her knowledge in surfing, which is great because that's a great attribute to have for somebody on the mats. We always talk about how important that the other person is on the mat, that you're not the most important person on the mat. Your training partners are the most important people. So when you look at things in a bigger light as a surf instructor, the big thing about if you are very passionate about surfing is not just about you developing, but also developing others too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad that this one is on video because you can see the passion that Naya has in her face when she talks about the art of jiu-jitsu and surfing and her adventures. And I think that's just motivating to people. So I'm excited for people to see that, actually see that, because you can feel it through the.
Yeah. Yeah, and the ocean is powerful, right? And also the art of jujitsu is powerful. I don't care how good of a surfer you are or how good of a BJJ practitioner you are. The ocean is bigger than you, and the art of jujitsu is bigger than you.
Well said. Two vast universes,
Yeah.
definitely. And the way that they coalesce so nicely just made this entire interview just so smooth because they really do. They really do come together sweetly.
Yeah.
Jason, do you have any other questions? I have one more, but I want to make sure if you
Yeah,
have.
no, go ahead and ask one more. We also, we'll do some takeaways too, Naya,
Mm.
but I just want to say too that Naya is always wanting to learn. She's always open to continuing to improve herself in her personal life too, because, if you have a passion in something like surfing, or if it's jujitsu and you're always looking to improve in that area, it really helps you in your personal life. And it really helps you to try to get 1% better in everything around you. It helps your life in many ways. It kind of branches out into your personal life and your professional life. And I see that with her because I'm her dad. So I see her always trying to, she's a hard worker and she's always trying to keep bettering herself. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, it's so funny. We are on the exact same wavelength, of course. Brilliant minds think alike. But we definitely are on the same wavelength because she shared a quote with me from her, I guess, idol or somebody that she admires in the field, Eli Olson. This quote is exactly what you just said. And it's from a surfer. And it's, I want to be the best. I want to be a better version of myself than I was yesterday. That's the quote that you shared with me. And I think that's such a beautiful quote. And it's what you just said Naya is living. That's probably why it resonated with her. And that's probably why she sent that to us, that quote. So I think that, Naya, you are doing that in your life. You're a very impressive young woman. You've given us a lot of takeaways, which I'm going to just resume right now. And then, my gosh, we could talk for hours with you, really. But some of the things that I liked about what you said, some of the imports or takeaways, is that first of all, you're another example of the bond that BJJ forms with two family members, like a dad and a daughter, a mom and a son, whatever. I love that. You are definitely going to have my students listen to this because you're closer to their age. And you take on the role of being adventurous and open to trying new things. Just like you said, you saw that surfing, 10 days, 0 to hero. You are never a zero, but you certainly are a hero. But you said, I'm taking that. And one night you looked at it, I'm going there, I'm taking that. I love that kind of risk taking. And I hope my students hear this. You said something that I think is so important, and we didn't even give it any spotlight. He said when you were starting, one of the things that kind of catapulted you a little bit were the really good surfers made some kind remarks to you.
Yeah.
Let's remember that, everybody in your profession. When you see a noob in your profession, instead of yelling noob, say some nice things about them. Compliment them on the smallest things. You still remember those compliments.
Yeah.
That's the power of kindness and, genuine praise. I loved this quote that you said. I wanted the office to be my ocean. That is just such a great quote. And I think every young person in the world should have a quote like that. Obviously, not the ocean, their office to be the ocean because I might be going somewhere else. But if a young person can put a quote out there like that, I think it'll give them the guts and the inspiration to move ahead. I love the way you talked about body mechanics and the importance of developing those for If you get those in jiu-jitsu, they translate to every sport. You nicely link the two concepts of positioning and energy management together that nobody else has done. I loved that.
Mm.
We talked about staying humble to grow. The only way to grow is to stay humble. Don't let your ego get in the way. And finally, we talked about the greatest philosophy of all, be present in the moment. And I think that's probably why you're such a happy person, is because you are present in the moment. You have commanded two arts that help you do that. And you couple that with the philosophy, and you're living proof of that. So I'd like to say thank you so much for all of these great things. My students are going to benefit from this. I'm going to make them watch this video, and they're going to be inspired by you.
Aw, thank you so I'm super happy to share this too, to talk about this. It's very fulfilling, and I feel like just sharing this, like people that maybe never even thought about surfing that do jujitsu, I hope that maybe they give it a try and they are amazed at what it can do for them in jujitsu and in their life, and vice versa for surfers and jujitsu.
Absolutely. You drop the pebble in the pond, and these waves will resonate for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
Jason, you must be a proud dad right now.
I am a proud dad. And she, the thing too is I think that, she can, because she's sharing her passion, it makes me feel even better because, obviously if she was sharing her passion of jujitsu, that would be cool too. But she's sharing her passion of surfing, which is still a passion. It's something that interrelates so well. She's not sharing a passion about something that doesn't have anything to do with jujitsu. She's doing something that is related to jujitsu. So that's even warmer to my heart. So I
100%.
love the connection. I love the fact that we made that solid connection between the two. Do you have any last minute advice that you would give to people, Naya, in terms of like what surfing has done for you or what jujitsu can do for somebody? Maybe, what, any of those things that we talked about?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to also just put in there, which is you would find out right away, is that, and actually I heard this from a wise man, also known as my dad. A quote he told me when I was in college and I was struggling to study, and it has helped me literally every day that anything gets hard, is nothing worthwhile is ever achieved without adversity. So with that being said, like if you go into it, even if you are trying to be humble, just know that it's not always going to be easy. It's very hard. Surfing is very hard, and jujitsu can be very hard. So don't think that like you can't do it. Like believe in yourself and show up. Show up every day for yourself, and you will get better and better every day.
I love the wisdom, and I love that you said show up, because every day I tell my students that, kids, you gotta show up. They're gonna believe me. I've got some support here. You are the best. We appreciate you so much. Here comes a big hug for you. Bam. Hope you got it.
What?
I miss seeing you in school.
I know. We had so much fun, did we not?
Yeah.
We did. We really did. So thank you so much. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Give lots of likes and share this wonderful young person brightening our world and giving us inspiration. Please share this with everybody you know. We appreciate our listeners, and we will catch you on the flip side.
And I also, Frank, want to just say I'm sorry. I know that was kind of an outro, but I just want to mention, Frank, before we go, that I looked at our Buzzsprout analytics, and I saw that there are actually 9 listeners in Sri Lanka.
Get out of here.
Yeah, we have 9 listeners we have 32 countries that we're in right now.
You got to raise a
And one
roof
of
for
them is
that.
Sri Lanka, and we have 9 listeners from Sri Lanka. So you have made an
We got
impact in Sri Lanka as
fans
well.
in Sri Lanka. We're global. We're international. We're international. Thank you to our listeners. Keep the love coming, and we'll keep giving you love.
All
Right?
right, Naya.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peace out, all.
Bye. Love
Bye-bye.
you.